This is the Defender Radio News Brief. I'm Michael Howie, and this is Defender Radio, the podcast for wildlife lovers and animal advocates. This news brief is brought to you by the Defender Radio Patreon. Find out how you can support the show and get unique bonus content at patreon.com/defenderradio. You've probably heard the name Bryce Casavant. He's the former conservation officer in British Columbia who made headlines when he refused an order to kill 2 healthy bear cubs. He also ran as an NDP candidate in the last provincial election in BC and continues to work for the government in the Ministry of Forests, Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. But it's his efforts as a student that has Bryce back in the news. Bryce is working toward a doctoral degree in social sciences at Royal Rhodes University, and his area of study should come as no surprise: wildlife, law enforcement, and social change. Recently, Bryce was given the go-ahead to pursue a review of 100 years of wildlife enforcement records, described as a critical discourse analysis. But it isn't just any records Bryce will be looking at.
The overarching theme is that these records will contain officers' notes, information pertaining to complaints that were made regarding animals that the government responded to, and that these stories and this narrative will be able to paint the picture of how we manage wildlife in the province and hopefully help us learn from history.
Considering how these files and notes are written and closely examining the terminology used, particularly in the cases of what is traditionally known as human-wildlife conflict, can be beneficial in understanding how decisions are made and how policy is interpreted by frontline officers, as well as the public.
Wildlife law enforcement has their own sort of subculture of language. And this language often shapes wildlife management processes. In some cases, destructive processes when there is alternatives available. As an example, when I was a conservation officer in British Columbia, we were specifically trained, taught, and told in our reports to use words such as dangerous wildlife, urban confined, garbage habituated, if we were to destroy an animal. And we were taught and told that the use of this language helps the media and the public understand why it was necessary to kill that animal. And in some cases, there was other alternatives available. But the use of that language, which are some very powerful terms, sort of justify the action without any further critical thought. And that's what I'm driving at. Is the language we're using appropriate in all circumstances? And I don't know that it is.
Bryce's publicly turbulent exchange with the brass of the Conservation Officer Service and his published studies and opinions on how wildlife management is conducted has led to comments from the public regarding bias or an alleged inability to remain objective. But that won't stop Bryce from moving forward with research or discord. And his closeness to the subject matter could actually help, he says.
One of the first things that I just have to do is acknowledge that. Yes, I am close to this research. Yes, I was a former conservation officer. Yes, I disagree with some of the policies and wildlife management processes that are currently being employed. But I also believe that my background in policing, which is fairly extensive, and my work with the Conservation Officer Service provides a very unique perspective on agency structure, organizational culture, the language that's used, training platforms and curriculum. And without that inside knowledge, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to even begin a research project like this. In conducting this research, my goal is very much so to help the agency move forward into more progressive wildlife management policies that protect the officers, that uphold public trust, that help the agency build positive public relations.
You could read more about Bryce Casavant's research and opinion pieces at brycecasavant.ca or find him on Facebook and Twitter. The full version of this interview will be available on your podcast feed later this week. That's it for now, folks. Remember, you can support Defender Radio as a Patreon and get exclusive access to bonus content, contests, and more at patreon.com/defenderradio. Until next time, I'm Michael Howie reminding you to stay informed and stay strong.